Hello, it's Mary Silver. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Finding Your Silver Lining. Today I have a very special guest. Her name is Karen Curry Parker. She's an international speaker and a #1 best-selling author of Understanding Human Design, The New Science of Astrology, Discover Who You Really Are. Karen heads her own personal development firm where she uses human design as the foundation for discovering a person's unique gifts and best strategies to help them create the healthiest, wealthiest, and most fulfilling life. Karen says human design is the operating manual for our lives. She has personally trained with thousands of people to use human design, helping them identify, resolve, and overcome habits and conditioning, keeping them stuck. Using her experience as a nurse, energy healer, and high-performance life coach, Karen develops programs focused on business, abundance, and relationship, taking this system deeper and more specific to areas of life needing focused attention. Karen's launched her most recent program, Healing by Human Design, to help people get into the heart of their pain, physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual. It helps you understand you don't have to suffer anymore. Everybody, give a warm welcome to Karen Parker. And welcome, Karen. Thank you so much for being here today.
I am so excited to be here. We get to have a good conversation about human design.
We do. So I first want to just give you a little bit of background on the audience that listens. They're very much into all things metaphysical and scientific. So we have law of attraction, basically basic psychology, and then astrology, numerology. And I would love it if you gave a little bit more background, just because human design is fairly new. And I hear people ask me all the time, I'm intrigued, but I have no clue where to start or what it is. So I'd love for you to give a little bit of background.
I love that because I think because I think that's a great question. So technically, human design is a synthesis of Eastern and Western astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Hindu chakra system, the Judaic Kabbalah, and quantum physics. And basically, it works very much like an astrology program. You take your birthday, birth time, and birthplace. Not your. I don't need to know your hospital room. You know, people send me hospital room numbers. Right? I don't need to know the hospital room number. Birthday, birth time, and birthplace. Plug it into a computer program, just like with astrology, and it spits out this chart. And if you've ever seen a human design chart, it's a triangle. It's got all kinds of weird shapes on it, and all kinds of strange lines on it, and it's basically a map. It's actually, it does two things. Number one, it's basically what I like to think of as a Rolodex of archetypes. It takes all these really beautiful, ancient, esoteric sciences and kind of puts them all in a blender. But, you turn the blender on and you come out with, here are like the 64 main characteristics of what it means to be a human. And so it shows you, most importantly, what are the archetypes that you tend to be learning from or experiencing or playing with or growing from in this lifetime? Because, we come from, I believe anyway, we come from a field of infinite possibilities. And if we manifest into human form over the course of a lifetime, and we have access to this infinite field of possibilities, it's actually really overwhelming. It's like taking a kid to the candy store at the Mall of America. You can't decide what you're going to do. And I think most of us already, I don't know how it is for you, Mary, with your clients, but I'll say for me, I would say 95% of my clients, their biggest challenge is, I don't know what I want. And they are already working from kind of a subset of a subset of a subset of parameters. And so this chart kind of gives you insights into what's your life path, what are the archetypes that you're working with here to teach you, what's the field of choices that you're creating from in this incarnation. And the second thing it shows you is, how then do you make the most of that story? How do you take the story of this collection of energies, these collections of archetypes that is you? How do you take that story then and use it as a springboard for your growth and your expansion, your evolution and your soul's evolution? And it's really, I think, if you could see it from that point of view, and I think a lot of times people want it to be a little bit more simple than that, but I think that's actually kind of simple. It's just basically a tool to help you understand the story of who you are and how to get the most out of that story so you have a truly great life, or at least a very meaningful life. So,
Right. Now, that's a big part of it, is understanding that there's well, I actually think that it is simple, what you were saying. And at the same time, like humans, it's very complex.
Yes, exactly.
That's the beauty of it, is that I feel, as I've studied it and learned from you through the years, it's some theme may be like a theme. It may be more pronounced at one part of your life. And do you think that that shows up in the human design chart? Is that something that people can follow?
Totally. Yeah, totally. I mean, first of all, I have like 5 things I want to say because I get excited about these kinds of conversations. So, first of all, we're talking about archetypes, and archetypes by nature are really neutral concepts. So, let's think of the archetype mother, right? You're a mother, I'm a mother. A mother is basically, I don't even want to limit it by gender anymore, basically a human being who is a parent of some way, in some way, shape, or form, to offspring. Okay, I mean, it's kind of neutral, right?
Absolutely.
But mother has a spectrum of potential ways that it can manifest in our lives, right? We have good mothers, we have amazing mothers, we have dead mothers, we have live mothers. I mean, mothers, it's a big concept, and it has a spectrum for how that theme can play out. If your chart is this, if your human design is this collection of archetypes that you're living out, those archetypes, first of all, blended together makes the story of who you are. And the story of who you are has a spectrum for how it can show up. So, what human design teaches us is that your life path has a journey. And it's actually a journey that I think is also reflected not only in psychology and brain development, but also in astrology. Your life cycle is expressed over the course of your life. The way I look at it in human design, can we get into this? Because this is fun.
Oh,
we don't
please.
talk about this very often. So your human design has 2 main components. It has your soul path and your life path. And those 2 things are different. It's almost like you can imagine your life path. It's like you're wearing a human suit, right? So your soul drops into this human suit, and then it has this adventure for hopefully, 80, 90, 100 years, right?
Right.
Or however long you're here. My son keeps telling me 120, mom. I'm like 84. but you're living this journey, and this journey has a very predictable purpose. And part of that purpose is to, in the first part of your life, discover what your life story is about, and in the second part of your life, integrate your soul purpose into that life story. So it's kind of like, I think traditionally, and I think even if you follow like Erik Erikson and Erik Erikson's stages of developments, yes. Somewhere around 40, we have that mid-year mark, that midlife mark. And at that midlife mark, we shift from who am I differentiated from my parents, who am I out into the world, to how do I serve the world? What's my legacy? How do I take what I know now and use it to create a better world than what I found when I was born here, right? Right. And that midlife mark is generally, as I said, around that 40-year mark. In astrology, that's differentiated by Uranus opposition. I think because we live longer now, that midlife mark is actually 40 to 50, and it comes at Uranus opposition, meaning the place when Uranus is at the opposite position that it was in when you were born on the astrological wheel. I also think at 50, we have another major astrological life cycle called the Chiron Return. And I think your Chiron Return also deepens that soul path journey that we start to live as we mature and have more experience on the path of life. And that happens around 48 to 52. Certainly in the beginning of life, from like birth to 28.6-ish, we have a first Saturn cycle, which is also, I think, a maturing point where we start to go, okay, I now know who I am. How do I live who I am out in the world? How do I become masterful in all the adulting things that I need to do, like getting married and having kids? So we have that piece. And then we have another Saturn cycle at the end of 50. This is when we miss a lot. most of my clients fall in the age range of like 48 to 60. And I find we go through 2 Saturn cycles. If you live here long enough, maybe 3, but 2 definite Saturn cycles, one in your youth at 28.6 and one at the end of your 50s. And that second Saturn cycle is really kind of a cosmic 2x4 sometimes for some people, where
yes, that's a good way of putting it.
the cosmic 2x4 comes along and sort of smacks you around and goes, okay, look, you've had this whole life to figure this stuff out. Now get to work. You have a legacy to build. So get going and do your purpose. How serious are you about doing your purpose? And you have that opportunity, I think, at that life point to either go, okay, I'm going to live my purpose. I'm going to for real do my bucket list. Or you can go, you know what? I'm just going to coast here, get Social Security, and just, chill. And I mean, neither way, by the way, I'm not saying either way is wrong or right. They're just different expressions on that spectrum of your life story, but you do get choices along the way. And I think those major life cycle events are kind of choice points where we have an opportunity to kind of, spend a lot of time in front of the bathroom mirror going, okay, wait a minute, what am I doing? And how do I take this story and do something with it?
Right. And I think that that's why, well, because I know your audience as well, I think that that's why you do attract so many different people, is that you say, you're very clear that your life can look different and it's okay whatever way it looks. And some people aren't meant to go out there and be these, if we're using our terminology, the manifesting generators with a defined will, which in layman's terms would be the go-getters that never stop and keep going and going until they've conquered and mastered every single thing. So not everybody is designed to be that way. And I think that that's the interesting piece of human design. There's potential in the chart, but there's also acknowledgement in the chart.
I agree. And I love that you bring that up, because one of the reasons why I love human design, particularly as a coaching tool or as an inspirational tool, is that we come from, especially in the personal growth and development field, and I think I'm not so familiar with psychology, so I'm not going to speak to that too much, but I think there's a certain formula about this is what a successful person does, and this is what a successful person looks like, and these are the rules for being successful. And if you go to Barnes and Noble and you go to the personal growth section, every book is sort of like, here's the formula for success. You got to think right, you got to get up early, you got to meditate, you got whatever it is. There's all kinds of formulas out there. And as you just said earlier, I think it's very, very difficult to turn humans into formulas, especially when I start looking at a human design chart and I look at the parameters in a chart. There are, first of all, these are just some of the things in a chart. There's 5 different energy types. Each one of those energy types has a different way of working, a different style of decision making. There are 12 different profiles. Each one of those profiles carries with it a different life path and a different learning style. There are 9 energy centers, and you can have them either colored in or open. So it kind of gives us 18 different possibilities there for how you process and experience different kinds of energies in the world. There are, 3 major circuits or channels of energy in the chart, and those circuits have sub-circuits, and then there's 32 channels and 64 gates. And if you really go deep into it, underneath it all, there's lines and bases and tones and colors. And, the bottom line is you put all those pieces again into a blender and you come out with, okay, here's your story. The permutations of those parameters, those puzzle pieces into unique stories is mind-blowing. And for anybody to have, I think, the hubris to go, okay, here's the formula for success, is, first of all, unrealistic. And secondly, frankly, I think profoundly unfair, because we run trips on people that make them feel, I think, a lot of times less than, or that they don't have willpower, or that they're somehow broken because they're not fitting into this formula for success. And honestly, I spend a lot of time in my practice going, whoa, time out. You're perfect. It's just the message that people have been giving you hasn't been the right message for you. So let's re-message your story. Let's give you I mean, honestly, a lot of what I do is just give people a new set of vocabulary words to define for themselves the story of who they are, so they can start living into that story instead of living a story that's not theirs. Because, I just recently read a study from the American Sociological Association that blew my mind. And it's still kind of echoing with me. It's a little bit old, but it's just the impact that it had. This research study said 68% of people in the United States, this is the United States, hate their jobs. And that there's a really high correlation between illness, back pain, and depression and anxiety and hating your job. And I started to think about the quality and the quantity of burnout that I see in my practice. This isn't directly necessarily related to the job thing, but part of the job thing is that we tend to go for jobs that make money or jobs we think we should have to get to a certain point so we can make money, so we can then quit our jobs and be free. Some of us,
So we can be successful, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I started thinking, when I read that, I was like, burnout. How many of my clients are burned out? And I really started to go, I bet you, and this is brash and bold, but I would bet you that 99.9% of my clients are burned out. And they're not, and some of them are not working. And I really started to look at what's creating the burnout. And I think, honestly, a lot of what's burning us out collectively is the energy that we put into either trying to be something that we're not, or feeling crummy about ourselves because we can't be something that we're not and we don't have the energy for it. And so we end up, in some cases, laying on the couch, worrying about, why can't I measure up to the standards that are being put on me, and what's wrong with me, and where am I stuck, and where am I blocked, and and then even that journey, even when you're laying on the couch worrying about that stuff, you're burning yourself out. Because it takes a lot of energy to worry or freak out or feel out of alignment with, or confused or hurt or broken, or think you're broken because you're not fitting into some formula that, you got put into from the very beginning of your life since you've been in preschool.
Absolutely.
Ew.
And I talk about that. I talk about that a lot with the subconscious messages and the subconscious programs that we get throughout our life. And just as a study, and I don't even remember where I read this. It was years ago when I was getting my master's degree, so that tells you how long ago it was. But they were discussing about, in psychology, it takes at least 5 generations to detach from those subconscious messages and create a different change in the generation, which, as you were speaking about this, it brought me to fast forward to today and thinking about, if it takes 5 generations to change patterns and subconscious beliefs in relating it back to human design, why do you think human design is becoming so much more popular to study, so much more sought out for clients? I mean, I'm seeing it all over the place, and maybe, there is that awareness when you're in something, you notice it more, but I actually have people say, "Oh, I heard of this thing." And so why do you think it's coming up now?
I think, okay, now we're going to get weird.
That's okay. I like weird.
Okay. So, what we create in this world is, I think, the collective manifestation of all of our consciousnesses. If that's a plural now.
Yeah.
And when you look at the evolution of our understanding of the world since the 1700s, in the 1700s or late 1700s, we had the scientific revolution, right? And we had this drive in science to understand how the material world works, right? We had Newtonian science and principles, right? If consciousness is including creating our understanding of the world, what we saw during that era was a consciousness that said, here's the rules, here's the formula for how the material world works. And if you think about the outcropping or the outgrowth of what came from that, I mean, ultimately we ended up with, the Industrial Revolution, right? The ultimate formula revolution. Here's how we make a car. Here's how we educate a child. Here's, we have all these systems, right, that came from this very kind of formulaic understanding of the material world. In the 1920s, we saw the emergence or the beginning of quantum physics, right? We saw scientists beginning to look at the building blocks of the material world, quantum particles. And they got their socks knocked off, right? Because suddenly when they started looking at quantum particles, what they started to see was that, oh, hey, wait, these building blocks of matter aren't acting like matter. What's the deal here, right? So the main takeaway that the quantum science sort of gave us is so far anyway, is that when you observe a quantum particle, the behavior of that quantum particle is going to meet the observer's expectations. So if I'm looking at it and you're looking at it, we're looking at two different, we're looking at the same thing. We're getting two totally different experiences of the same thing. Along with that shift in understanding, which really put the whole understanding of the material world on its head, and we still haven't sorted it out, I think, in our collective awareness, or at least in scientific awareness yet. We also saw the emergence of new thought, right? We saw the beginning of Unity Church. We saw Science of Mind, Madame Blavatsky probably a little bit earlier, but we saw Rudolf Steiner in the beginning of Waldorf education, a little bit later on Montessori, and this whole phenomenon of your thoughts create your reality, right? This whole different way of creating and being in the world. And again, it's not so much that what happens changed our consciousness. I really think that as consciousness evolves, and I think evolution is the imperative of the universe. I think the universe is constantly seeking to grow. That as we grew and evolved, we started to understand that our creative power is rooted not so much in formulas and what we do, but in how we be. And that our beingness is a key component of our creative capacity. And with that understanding, that emerging understanding, we had since 1987 the beginning of human design. And I think human design is so popular because I think as we continue to evolve the consciousness that our beingness is an aspect of our creative power, that we have to recognize, or we have to know who we be in this incarnation to do what we came here to do, so that we can serve our part in this movement, this mass movement of humanity towards what I believe is, I don't want to call it a new world, because I think when we talk about that, people have this idea that aliens are going to come down and colonize. I don't think it's going to be like that, but right. I do think there's a new consciousness that's rooting on the planet, and that is a consciousness that is abundant and sustainable, and that we're kind of going through this clearing process. And I think, frankly, part of what we're clearing is this whole idea that there's a formula, and we're moving more into, what is my place in the whole? Where is my piece of the puzzle? What is my role in the context of the big picture? And recognizing that when I play that role, not only do I have more sustainability and more abundance, I'm not burning my energy trying to be something I'm not, but that I'm also, from a consciousness perspective, creating more possibility for other people to have that same experience. That we're all moving into this place where, as part of, we're this sort of heralding this new age of, I don't want to say new age because I hate that phrase too, but this new era of sustainability and equitability and acceptance and peace, that as we move towards this new era, we have to really learn how to be the full expression of who we are. That's a really long answer. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. And it brought up some others. I think that one of the biggest ones that came up for me is when you're trying to get this message out to the collective conscious, and even in an individual, and I'm trying to steer away from politics. So I'm trying to phrase this anyway. What are the dangers of working along the sides of people who aren't going to find this work? Or are there dangers to becoming aware when other people aren't aware? And how does that play a part of all of this as well?
Oh, okay. All right. So good question. Let me try to say this without getting into politics too. I did date a Republican once.
We all have.
Relationship. I'm kidding. Totally. Okay. So let me just say he has way more money than me. I don't think it's dangerous, but I think that it does require a certain amount of awareness for navigating through it. So again, going back to looking at the science of vibrations modulate each other. And to keep it really, really simple, you can go back to JFK and saying, a rising tide lifts all boats, right? And that's not completely true in the context of vibrations because they do modulate. You can lift people up, but there is that possibility that they're going to bring you down. And so, everything I think about the future is to a certain degree about understanding the nature of vibrational waves. When you look at a vibrational wave, it undulates, right? A sine wave undulates.
Yes.
It has, by nature, ups and downs. And if you're not vibrating, you're dead. So your own being out there in the world, being aligned with yourself, creating true to who you are, I actually think that's a really high vibrational state of being, because when you're living that way and you're accepting yourself and loving yourself, you're not spending a lot of your energy in resistance. And so you're not losing a lot of your vibrational frequency managing resistance. And I really think it's resistance that creates a lot of bugaboo for us in terms of health, in terms of vitality, in terms of relationships, in terms of money, in terms of everything. Resistance is, we must resist resistance, okay? So, but when you look at a vibrational wave, and it's got daily fluctuations, the thing that's really important is not so much the where am I today, where am I today, this is where I was this morning. It's really, where's the baseline frequency? What's the median range between the high and the low? And the truth is, you're going to go out into the world. You might be out in the world in your high vibe state, right? You might flip open your CNN news page and immediately, right, you're going to tank your vibe if you're not careful.
Right.
It's not about, oh my God, in this moment, I tanked my vibe. Now I'm uncreating everything I've ever creating, right? Instead, I just need to understand that the day-to-day fluctuations of my vibe is not that important. What my husband's vibe is not that important. What CNN's vibe is not that important. I have to keep bringing myself back up to the baseline. This, to me, is a brilliant part of understanding, another brilliant part of understanding your human design chart, because what your human design chart is going to show you is what energies do you have that are inherently sourced within you that are consistent to you, and what places do you, or where are you open to taking in other people's energies? Most of us, well, all of us, in some way, shape, or form, are designed to dance with other people's energy fields or other people's auras. I mean, that's why we feel each other, and that's why we're drawn to each other. We like that energetic dance, right? And when you understand the nature of how you're hardwired, so let's say that your hardwiring is that you are emotionally open, or you are emotionally empathic, and that's half of us. Half of us go out into the world, we take in emotional energy, and wherever you have openness according to human design, you don't just experience other people's energies, you actually amplify it. So you're emotionally open, you go out into the world, you take in somebody else's emotional energy, you experience it. Emotional energy is probably not the right example because that's already really complicated, because the first thing we do is we say, I am whatever the emotion is, right? I'm sad. Well, first of all, your identity center is not located on your emotional center. So you can't be sad. You can experience sadness, but you can't be sad. If you're being sad, that's a weird identity. So don't be sad, be you. Okay?
Right.
But experience sadness, right? So first of all, we start to identify with what we're experiencing. And as soon as you start to identify with it, you're focusing on it and you're latching onto it. And as you know from quantum physics and from law of attraction, where you put your focus or what your expectation is what you're going to continue to experience and generate, because you're experiencing sadness, you're looking at the world, you're looking at a world filled with quantum particles with the expectation or the experience of sadness, and that's influencing everything around you. And suddenly your world becomes sad, everything becomes sad. And now, not only are you experiencing sadness, you're also now tanking out your baseline frequency. You're bringing the whole baseline of your vibe down, because now you're like totally in this sadness. And you didn't understand that A, wasn't your sadness. B, you were amplifying it. C, that's not who you are. And you're, instead of allowing that energy to come through you as a way of being aware of, oh, hey, what's going on around me? Wow, that person over there is experiencing sadness, and I'm experiencing his sadness. Do I need to take some kind of compassionate action? Is there some responsibility I have for this? Oh, no, I don't. This is his experience, not mine. Okay, I can be with the sadness. but I don't have to take it in, and I don't have to own it, and I don't have to be responsible for it, and I don't have to adapt and adopt what I need and want with it, so that I give up, who I am and what I need and want with it because this person over there is feeling sadness. When you get the energy, how your energy field operates, you can start making a different set of decisions around the awarenesses and the experiences you're having out in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you brought that together, because I do think that when we talk about manifesting abundance, raising our vibrations, all of the law of attraction terms, there is a level that sometimes we forget. And that was what you just brought up with the feeling others and having some compassion for them, and recognizing that we can help somebody without identifying it as ourselves.
Or being responsible for it. And I think that's the tricky part, because that's where we slide into that codependency piece.
Right.
Oh, I'm feeling sadness, I must put it out. What can I do to fix it?
That's, very true. Very true. I mean, and we could seriously go on and talk about this for a very long time, because there's electromagnetics of human design, how we attract others into our lives, how we manifest, how we create abundance versus somebody else. And I really encourage everybody to look into getting their human design chart looked at and read. And like I said, we could go on forever about this, but believe it or not, we are at our ending point here. So to wrap it all up, I would love for you just to give the listeners one way that they can, other than obviously learning about their human design, but one way in everyday life that they can incorporate some of these theories in creating a more sustainable life for themselves.
Okay, so this is tricky, but I spend a lot of time coaching people to do this. Do what feels good. And I'm not talking about, don't get up here and go, well, is this good? Is this right? Don't think about it. Drop down in here and go, does this feel good? Okay, I'm going to go do it. Because our inner alignment with our life path is always going to feel good. When you're aligned with who you are and what you're here to learn, it's going to feel good. And if you're not, it's not going to feel good. And you're going to struggle to rationalize it. And you're probably going to do it anyway, because your brain's really, really good at doing that. So.
Right. And we're conditioned to do that as well.
Absolutely.
So do what feels good. I really like that. That is great for everyone. And it is a practice to doing what feels good and getting out of our minds. How can our listeners find you? And I believe you have something special to offer them. So
I do. So I would like to invite everybody to visit our website, understandinghumandesign.com. On the website, you can, if you haven't gotten your human design chart, you can fill out a form, get your free human design chart. We actually hand run charts. So we have chart elves that are running charts for you. So they will actually hand calculate a chart for you, email it back to you in PDF format with a nice little report that'll give you a beginning understanding of what does the chart mean, give you some insights into how you can look at what the chart is telling you in terms of what's a good decision-making strategy, how does some of your energy field work. It's just a nice intro to human design. I also want to invite you while you're there to check out our human design practitioners. We have some amazing, amazing teachers and practitioners who can give you a human design reading. Go find one that appeals to you. Go look at their pictures, go look at their human design type, see if their type matches your type and if there's resonance there, and go call them and set up a human design reading. I really can't tell people enough what a great initiation this is, this experience of getting a human design reading is into retelling the story of your life in a way that really fits you, so that you can really find that target zone, that place on your personal journey, that endpoint on your map that you want to head to, that's your journey and yours alone to follow. Do that for yourself, because I think if you can give yourself that gift, it's the greatest gift you can give yourself.
I agree. I definitely agree. I think that the more we learn about ourselves, the more we learn about others in the process.
Oh, totally.
And that's the understanding piece, the the compassion piece that I love, that attracts me so much to it. And that is Karen's website is www.understandinghumandesign.com. And you can go there and you can get your free human design chart and just find out if it's something that interests you, and then you can look into getting a reading and getting more deeper into it. I will warn people, once you're in it, it's like the rabbit hole. You keep wanting to go down further and further. So
it's a fun rabbit hole.
Oh, we have a blast. I think we have a great group of people too. So we have a blast together, and we learn a lot about one another and the collective consciousness. And I love what you're doing. I definitely want to have you on the show again, because Karen not only does human design readings, but she's getting her PhD, and this is a major study for her in how this does play a part of lasting effects in humanity.
Yes.
And I'm excited to learn way more about that. And again, thank you so much for being here today, Karen. And everyone, thank you for listening, and we look forward to joining you next time. Thank you.
Mary.